Okay, folks, so this is going to be a little bit of a tutorial, just a few tips and tricks on how to do some of this geocoding and downloading layers, and just basically how to use QGIS. So the first thing I want to do when I'm going to be using QGIS is I want to make a folder, and I'll call this Exercise 3 Market Basket. So it's really, really important when you're using a desktop GIS that you keep your data organized, because if you don't know exactly where all of the files for your shape files are, and you end up not having them in the folder, and you zip the folder and you send it off to somebody, it can end up being broken and it won't work. So file management is really important. So I'm going to make sure all of the files that I've generated are going to be in this folder here for this project. Okay. So that being said, another thing. So I'm going with QGIS 3.4, the LTS. So I'm going to start a new project. And I am going to give it a name. So we'll call it Exercise 3 Market Basket. Okay. And we're going to save that. Downloads. Okay, so here we're inside the downloads folder, and I'm going to go inside the Exercise 3 folder. Okay, so I'm inside the Exercise 3 folder now. So I'm going to make sure that that project file, and it's going to be saved as a QGZ file. So that is specific to QGIS. So I've started a project file, and so what this means is that if you wanted to just open your project rather than having to open the layers one by one again, you can just open the project file and you should be able to open your whole project. Okay, so my project is now saved. So if I go into my file tree here, so I've got my project saved. Okay, so then I want to look and see if what my projection is set at. So right here, you can see the projection of the project, right? So I'm clicking on it. And it looks like we're at WGS84. We're gonna make it a projected coordinate reference system, WGS84 UTM zone 16N. And so that is going to be the coordinate reference system for our project. Okay, so now we've got our project set up. So if you go to project, let's see here, if you just go to properties of the project, you see the coordinate reference system is set. There's a few other general things that you can choose to set as far as your project, but we've got the file name here, right? So that's where our project is being saved. So okay, everything looks good. Okay, so now we need to bring our data in, and I know folks have had difficulty geocoding either in QGIS or in Carto. Now I haven't been able to replicate some of these issues, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on. I've been able to get both to work, And so just do remember that there are plugins, right? So in QGIS, you manage plugins, and so these plugins are built by other folks. And so the geocoding plugin that we're using, QGIS, right? So I do have this one downloaded already. So it's installed. You can see it's got a check mark there. And there are other geocoding plugins. That's the one I chose to use. So here now we have this QGIS heading. And so we can go ahead and geocode. We want to geocode CSV with web service. Okay, so we need a CSV. So this is for you folks that might not remember how exactly this works. So we want to go ahead and go to our web page for GIS. And we want to go to the group project. And here's the group project data sitting right there. And I'll remind folks that there's some null data in here. You're still kind of working with your own data at this point. So if you are needing to, fill in some null values, please go ahead and do that. So file, download, file, download, CSV. Okay, so I downloaded a CSV file. And so now I can bring that into QGIS and I can go ahead and geocode. So I'm going to use QGIS, the plugin, geocode CSV with web service. So I'm going to find my input file, which is Market Basket. It'd be better if there weren't spaces, but I've looked at doing it both ways and it's not a problem. Okay. And then store address, right? So that is the address field. And now I've actually tried, so I've seen some students, because I did build a separate, I've built a separate spreadsheet where I split out city and state so that I could fill these fields. And it actually doesn't matter in QGIS. It geocodes the exact same way, whether I just go with store address or if I fill in city and state. So I'm just going with what we've done originally here. Web service, I just go with OpenStreetMap. And so the output file, so this is important, right? So downloads, exercise 3, market basket, and we'll call this QGIS geocode. Okay. And then this is just not found output list. And so this is just going to be a list of the ones that it couldn't actually geocode, so the ones that it failed to geocode. So we'll just call this QGIS geocode fail. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and apply this, and it's going to take a little bit of time to go ahead and process. And like I said, I have not had any problems. Hopefully I don't have any problems, tonight doing this. But yeah, I've been able to geocode both in QGIS and Carto. And something that you folks might want to do is do a little bit of background research on how the programs are actually geocoding, because you can end up with errors, geocoding errors based on the algorithm that's being used. And so it ends up that what Carto is doing to do geocoding versus what QGIS is doing to do geocoding, might be a little different. Okay, so while this is working, so we do have the rainbow spinning wheel of death here that tells you that QGIS is working on it. Okay, geocoded 95 of 104. And so this is, I've been getting this repeatedly, so there are a few addresses that's having trouble with. So we can close that. Okay, so this is the best QGIS can do geocoding wise. And so now if we go back, so remember we're all in one, all this is happening in one folder, and we've got our QGIS fail CSV. And so this shows you the ones that it was not able to geocode. So if you wanted to know which ones you would have to go back and do manually, and who knows exactly why it was choking on these, but QGIS was choking on these. So you now have a geocoded, layer built in QGIS, and also you've got a list of the ones that were not successfully geocoded. Now, and I've spent a good deal of time trying to figure out which way is better. And I feel like actually Carto does a better job geocoding than QGIS does, just because of the algorithm they use. And so I went ahead. Okay. So I went ahead, and so you folks know how to do geocoding in Carto, right? So you're in your data set, and then you add an analysis, you geocode. And again, I'm just using street address. And again, I tried it both ways. I tried it using just street address and actually going through and having it separated out by city, state, and country, and it actually it made no difference. So I feel like this is pretty robust. And so here's the geocoding result. And I've noticed Carto will add this ID in there, this Carto ID. And so, and then here's a Latin longe that Carto has determined. Okay. So, that being said, to get the data from Carto, right, I just am going to export the data as a shapefile. Okay. And so once I have it downloaded, I'm going to go ahead and move it. So again, just to make sure everything's, well, actually, I'll leave it outside of the folder. I will bring it in. So I will add a layer. It's a vector layer. So I'll go to my zip file. So here it is. Okay, I'm going to tell it to add. So now, I'm just going to change the color here so that it's obvious which is which. Okay, so I've got the data geocoded from Carto and the data geocoded from QGIS. And as you can tell, you've used different algorithms to try to figure out where the locations are based on addresses, and they found different locations. So we're going to have to check this against the Google satellite imagery. Okay, but anyway, I didn't have any trouble geocoding either with Carto or with QGIS. And at this point, we've got this, we've got this layer that we brought in from Carto. And I'm just going to save this. So we're just going to save features as. We're going to save this as an Ex3 shapefile. And we're going to go into our folder, exercise 3, market basket. And I'm just going to call this Carto geocode. Okay. All right. And that's now brown. I'll change that a little bit. Let's go with yellow. Okay. Okay, so I've got Carto geocode and QGIS geocode. I'm going to take this off and just confirm. I'm going to go back into my file tree and confirm that I'm in my exercise 3 market basket. I got my QGIS, my whole set of files that define my shapefile, QGIS geocode, and then my whole set of files that define my shapefile for the Carto geocode. Okay, so that's looking good. All right, so I can go back here, and you folks have done this before, right? Where you saw the OpenStreetMap, so you can drag OpenStreetMap over, and you end up with, oh, and we accidentally put it on top here, so we can bring it down there. Okay. I was just checking my coordinate reference system. So again, this is the coordinate reference system for my project. We've got UTM zone 16N. And just a note, these XYZ tiles, you're actually pulling this off the internet. So this is not actually downloaded on your computer. You're just pulling this off the internet. And so that's why we're going to look at OpenStreetMap and figure out how to actually download some of the data so that you have it on your computer. Okay. So I'm just going to go to the exercises and pull up the exercise for this week. Okay, and I just laid a couple links here. Okay, so to get some of this OpenStreetMap data, there's this thing called the Quick OSM plugin, which I think is probably going to be the easiest route for you folks. And so this link does detail how to use it, but I'll also use it for you here. So again, you would go into plugins, Quick OSM. Right, and so I've already got it installed here. So you want to make sure that's installed. So you can it makes a little icon here on the desktop, but you can also access it here. Okay, so Quick OSM. So OpenStreetMap, the key is just it's just the different types of things that you can download through OpenStreetMap. And so if you didn't put anything, then you're downloading from all keys. So city address, boundaries, building, basically anything in this whole list. Public transport. Okay. Now I'm just going to show you, for example, I'm going to choose buildings, right? So I want to download buildings from the OpenStreetMap data. And in the attribute table, apartment buildings, commercial, farm buildings, house, industrial, yes that it's a building. And I'm just going to query all values. So any building I want to download. Okay. And you could choose a town or the canvas extent. So basically, everything, this whole canvas that you see right here, that is the spatial extent it's going to download data for. Okay, so I'm going to run the query. And so this is actually going to download OpenStreetMap data. And it's going to download all of the building information, so all the building data within this canvas extent. So I'm going to get more than I need, right? Because I'm going to get more than what's in Elkhart. And again, this is a way for you to actually download data, to have it on your computer rather than having to rely on a web service, which is what we're doing now. And just so you know, OpenStreetMap is so it's completely volunteer. So some of the stuff is not up to date, and some of the attributes data are not up to date. So I have noticed that. So just take it with a grain of salt, and you'll always want to check things for quality. Okay. So here we are in the town of Elkhart. Now I've got the buildings. So if I turn off OpenStreetMap, I still have the buildings. And you can download the roads. You can choose just the major highways or everything. And it looks like it's given me point data for buildings, line data for buildings, and polygon layer for buildings. If I turn off point, see, I don't think the point and lines really gave me much. So I'm just going to remove those anyway. Okay, so I've still got the polygon data. And if you notice, so if you go back, if you go to downloads, you're not actually seeing those data anywhere. So we actually have to save the data to actually have it on our computer, because right now you can see this little icon, which means it's a network data. So we're going to export, save features as Ex3 shapefile. We're going to go to, again, exercise 3, market basket. We're going to let's call it OSM buildings. Okay. Say okay. All right. So we're at OSM buildings. So you see this new layer has shown up. So now I actually have the data that are OSM buildings. So I can go ahead and take this layer off. Okay. So OSM buildings, I don't know. I'll change the color to black. Okay. And so this is, I just wanted to show you something without bogging down my computer too much. But you folks can download highways, you can download all sorts of data, right? Okay, so now we've got our OpenStreetMap data. We've got we've got two different data sets that have been geocoded, one through QGIS, one through Carto. And then so the next thing that I wanted to show you folks is, so again, you've got this OpenStreetMap data that's through the internet, right? So this is hosted online, but that doesn't give us any satellite imagery. And so I wanted to show you how to, and I've got a couple maps listed under here that you might not have: Google Satellite Hybrid, Google Maps Satellite. And so that comes into, so if web-based, this link for web-based maps, this is actually a YouTube video that takes you through how to add these. But what I will do is, and then associated with that video is a set of links. right here. And so let's say I wanted to get the Google terrain map. Let me copy this link for the Google terrain map. Okay, and then get back to QGIS. Okay, so I'm going to click on here, right click, new connection, and we'll just call this Google terrain, and I'll copy that link there. Press OK. So now I've got Google terrain. So if I drag that over, okay, so now I have a Google terrain map. Of course, right now it's over everything. We'll move that down to the bottom. And then we can, do some fun things. If we go into our OpenStreetMap web data, not the stuff we downloaded, you can set the transparency. So if we make that transparent, right, then we start to see the underlying Google terrain. We can choose to change the color of the Google terrain, or change the opacity of the Google terrain. We can change. Yeah, so you can change different ways that it's displayed. So if you think it's a little too dark, you can go into the transparency, make that a little more transparent. That lightens that up. So anyway, this is just a for example. So now we've got terrain data underneath, but again, it's not downloaded. You're just pulling it from the web. And so what I like, especially when I'm trying to do quality control and check for errors in the data, I want the hybrid, Google Satellite Hybrid, which again, you'd go through the same process. So here's the Google Satellite Hybrid link right here. So you can add that to your own QGIS. So I'm going to bring it out. And we can even, because it's hybrid, I can even just turn off the OpenStreetMap data. And now we have, we can actually check our data. So, so it starts out, I'm just, the actual data that we downloaded, the OpenStreetMap buildings, you folks can see the different buildings. And so if I click on that buildings layer, and then this little pointer with the eye, this gives me information about the buildings. And so if I click on that, this is what's in that what's in the attribute table for that. Looks like the store name Menards is in there, so that's helpful. This one, not as helpful. Store name's not in there. Again, this one, not as helpful. Store name's not in there. So OpenStreetMaps leaves a lot to be desired as far as the amount of data available. And you can also look at the whole attribute table at once. So, you can see buildings. A lot of them just say yes. Indicating yes, it is a building. Okay, so all right, so we're going to turn the OpenStreetMap data off for the time being, and so let's go ahead and increase the size. Let's go ahead and increase these. Let's increase this to 7. And we'll increase this to 6, just in case they're overlapping. We'll be able to see if they're overlapping. And let's pick a better color. Let's go with magenta. Okay. All right. So, and now, we're going to use this little hand, right? If we want to pan around our map. I'm just going to check in on my projection. Everything's good projection-wise. And if you want to prove it to yourself, look at these coordinates down here. Those are UTM coordinates, right? So that's proving to yourself that you are in the 16N UTM projection. So this is this has been a problem here. So the magenta are the QGIS and the yellow are the Carto. So again, if I highlight Carto, right, and I get my little information pointer, hopefully that's Arby's, and yep, so that is Arby's, and our Google layer says it's Arby's. Now if we highlight QGIS, they say Arby's is over here. That's a problem, right? And then what is this one? They're calling that Taco Bell. We know Taco Bell is actually up here. So we look at the Carto data set, and yeah, Taco Bell's up there. So just taking a really brief look at the data, this tells me that I trust the Carto geocoding much more than the QGIS geocoding. So we can take that layer off, and I'll actually just delete it. So I won't be, so the QGIS geocoding won't be in our way. And I mentioned I will get you folks once all the data are in the data set. I will get you folks a geocoded file that we'll all use going forward. Okay, so we've decided the Carto data are a little better, or a lot better than the QGIS geocoded data, but they're not perfect. Okay, so again, let's go see what this is. So this looks like it's Burger King. So it's in the parking lot, but not right on the building. So what do we do if we want to fix that? Okay. So we have to open up this layer for editing. So we highlight it, we click on this little pencil, and that means it's now open for editing. So if I turn it off, the little pencil disappears. Turn it on, the pencil disappears. Okay, so now we're ready for editing, and now we want to move that point. So you go to edit, and move feature. Okay, so now we can select this and move it where it's supposed to go. All right, so I just corrected where Burger King is located in my data set. So again, if we want to look into this stuff again here, let's see here. So here it looks like we've got, let's just make sure that this really is saying it's Culver's. So yeah, that's Culver's, but it's not quite on the building. So we can, so again, go to edit, move feature. We can get that moved right on the building. Okay, so, and then we can toggle editing off once we're done. Do you want to save changes? Yep, save the changes. So now all the stuff we did, all the stuff we did is now saved. So this is a way to sort of tidy up the data set from doing geocoding. And so, yes, we could have, I could have had you folks just do this from the very beginning instead of making a CSV file, but I wanted you folks to be able to learn how to geocode, learn how to manage data, learn how to edit data, all that good stuff. So we're learning a bunch as we go along. And so another piece is that I want you folks to know, especially because each of you will be working with your own data set. So the folks who did fast food will work with fast food. The folks who work with grocery stores will work with grocery stores. So how do we parse that out? So if we go to Carto Geocode and we go to Filter, so now we've got all of the different fields that are in the attribute table. If we go to Store Type, if we double click on Store Type, so you see it's written Store Type down here, equals, And then I want it to populate all the options for store type. So drugstores. Okay. Okay, so now what this is doing is now it's only showing in that Carto geocode layer, it's only showing the drugstores. Okay, so if we wanted to make a layer that's just drugstores, we can export, save features as Esri shapefile. We're in our exercise 3 market basket. We'll do drugstores underscore Carto geocode. Okay. Okay, so that'll be our new shapefile. And okay. Okay. So now, and I'll just increase this so we can see it a little better. And we'll give this red here. Okay, so you can see now you've got this layer of drugstores. And if you go into, see, you've got your shapefile files for drugstores as well. Okay, so now, we just, and the order that you do this, you could make a copy. For instance, you could make a copy of this before you do the filter. And then you can just do the filter on that copy. So we can go into the filter here. We can just get rid of it. So now we've got one layer showing us everything, and the other layer just showing us the drugstores. Okay. So if you look in the attribute table, this has all the different types of stores in it. Then you look at the attribute table here, and it's just got the drugstores. Okay, so that's how you subset your data in QGIS. I know you folks have done that in Carto. And so just to recap, so you folks have learned how to geocode, both in QGIS and Carto, and I can tell you that the Carto does a better job than QGIS. I've talked to you about how to start your project, make sure everything's set up, make sure you're managing your files correctly. We've talked about these web base maps, and I've taught you how to download OpenStreetMap data, right, so that you can actually have data on your computer for a base map rather than just have a web base map. And I've taught you how to do a basic query where you're basically querying by the type of the store type to set up a layer that's just, in this case, just drugstores. And then I've shown you how to, look at your locations and then edit the layer based on locations. So, all right, folks. Well, that's it, and there'll be another video tutorial about how to actually make a print map from Carto from this. So you folks will be able to add the neighborhoods from Elkhart and all that good stuff. So, all right, that is what I wanted to show you folks here. And of course, if you have any questions, please do email me, text, get in touch.